With today's lesson, we are going to work on building fluency with adding and subtracting mixed numbers. And so your focus for today is you can find sums and differences of mixed numbers by finding the least common denominator, regrouping, and simplifying your solution to lowest terms. And so when we take a look at this first problem, the first problem says Tim has 15 feet of wrapping paper. He uses 4 1/3 feet for his daughter's present and 5 3/8 feet for his niece's present. How much wrapping paper does Tim have left? And then we're going to solve this problem any way we choose. Well, we're going to choose to solve it using addition and subtraction with mixed numbers. And so first thing I need to do is I need to look at what this problem is asking. And so the problem is asking me to find how much wrapping paper does Tim have left. So my hidden question is going to be, how much does he use to begin with? So to start with that, we need to go ahead and we need to add 4 1/3 feet of wrapping paper that he used for his daughter's present with 5 3/8 feet of wrapping paper that he used for his niece's present. And then that'll give us the total amount that he used. That'll give us this distance right here in the diagram. And then it'll allow us to solve for the missing value. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the lowest common denominator. And so the lowest common denominator is going to be 20/4. And to get to 20/4, I'm going to multiply 3 by 8. So 3 times 8 is going to be 24. So I'm going to multiply by 8, multiply by 8. So I end up with 8 24ths. And then I have 3 times 8 here. Or sorry, 3 times 3 because I multiplied 8 times 3. So 3 times 3 is going to be 9. I add 8 and 9 together. I get 17 24ths. And then 4 and added to 5 is going to be 9. So now I'm subtracting 9 and 17 24ths from 15. And we talked about yesterday when we did this lesson, we talked about when you have a whole value, you're going to go ahead and you're going to regroup it. So I'm going to rewrite 15 as 14. And then the denominator that I'm going to be using is the 24ths. So 14 and 24 24ths. And then I have 9 and 17 24ths. I'm going to subtract, and then I'm left with, so 24 subtract 17 is going to be equal to 7 24ths, and then 14 subtract 9 is going to be equal to 5. So I'm left with 5 and 7 24ths feet of wrapping paper. The last thing I need to check is I need to check to see that I can simplify this problem. And so I look at my 7 and I look at my 24, and I cannot simplify. They do not have a common factor. I cannot divide 7 and 24 by the same value to reduce it to lowest terms. So my answer here was going to be 5 and 7 24ths. Okay, so if we go ahead and we take a look at the look back, it says in the problem above, how could you have estimated the amount of wrapping paper that is left? So what we will do is when we estimate, we're going to go ahead and round these to the nearest value. So 4 1/3, we talked about this in yesterday's problem, 4 1/3 is going to be about 4.5. 5 3/8 is going to be close to 5.5, which is going to give me 10. And then I have 15 subtract 10, and that gives me 5. Our answer was 5 and 7 24ths. So our answer was a reasonable answer. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and head to the next page and take a look at your visual learning. And so you'll notice that we're doing multiple steps now. So we're adding mixed numbers or subtracting mixed numbers and just taking those steps. So we're using our addition and subtraction of mixed numbers in multi-step problems. And so this next one we're going to take a look at is Clarice has two lengths of fabric to make covers for a sofa and a chair. The chair requires about 9 2/3 yards of fabric. How much fabric will Clarice have left? And so you'll notice that she's got the two lengths of fabric that she has. She has 7 5/6 and then 5 3/4. So she needs to see how much fabric she's going to have left if we start with 9 2/3. So the first step that we're going to do is we need to see how much fabric she has in all. So I need to take 7 5/6, and I need to take 5 3/4, and I'm going to add them together. So I'm going to take 7 5/6 and 5 3/4, and I'm going to add them together. Common denominator is going to be 12. So last time I just multiplied 3 times 8. This time the smaller common denominator is going to be 12. I get that with 4 by multiplying by 3. So 3 times 3 is going to be 9. For 6, I get that by multiplying by 2. So 5 times 2 is going to be 10. So when I add those together, 10 plus 9 is going to be equal to 19 twelfths. And so I'm actually going to, before I simplify this into a improper fraction, I'm going to change up the order that I'm doing it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add these together because I know that I'm going to have to regroup this anyways and turn it into a mixed number. And so I'm going to have 7 plus 5 is going to be 12. So right now I have a total of 12 and 19 twelfths fabric. Well, this is going to be equal to, if I go ahead and convert it, 12 goes into 19 one time. So now this becomes 13, and then I have 7 twelfths fabric left over. So I end up with 7 twelfths fabric left over. And now I'm going to take that 13 and 7 twelfths, and I'm going to subtract it from, I'm going to subtract 9 2/3 from that. So I have 13 and 7 twelfths, and I'm going to subtract 9 2/3. And when I do that, common denominator again is going to be 12. And I have to look and I have to see, do I have to regroup? And so I have to see, is 7 twelfths larger or smaller than 2/3? And it's going to be smaller than 2/3. So I'm actually going to take it back to what I had here, which was 12 and 19 twelfths, because 7 out of 12 is going to be 19. So now I have 19 twelfths, and then 2/3 is going to, again, I multiply by 4, is going to be 8 twelfths. So 19 subtract 8 is going to be 11 twelfths. And then I have 12 subtract 9, which is going to be 3. So she will have 3 and 11 twelfths yards of fabric left. Jump over to your guided practice. And so when we take a look at our guided practice, number 1 says, in the example on page 432, why do you add before you subtract? And so when we look at our addition before we subtract, we need to find the total amount. So we have to find the total amount of fabric before I can subtract. So total amount of fabric is what I need to find. So I need to find the total amount of fabric before I can subtract from there. Okay. In the example on page 432, does Clarice have enough fabric left over to make 2 cushions that each use 2 1/3 yards of fabric? So if you remember that she had left over 3 and 11 twelfths, and so I just need to see if I add 2 1/3, if I add 2 cushions that are both 2 1/3, is it going to work? So I have 2/3, 4 2/3, so 4 2/3 is going to be greater than 3 and 11 twelfths, so she does not have enough. Okay. All right, so we are going to find the sum and differences of some problems. I like that green. Okay. So number 3, 5 and 1900, or 5 and 1/9, subtract 2 2/3. So again, just really making sure that when we do this, we're paying attention to whether we're subtracting or adding. And so when I do this one, 5 and 1/9, subtract 2 2/3, common denominator. So I'm just going to write this off to the side because I have room. Minus 2 2/3. And common denominator is going to be ninths. I already have 1/9. And so 2/3 I get that by multiplying by 3. And I end up with 6/9. So if you did this step before you look to see if you regroup, here you'll see, oh, I absolutely need to regroup. So the 5 becomes a 4. The 9 becomes, so I add 9 to 1 becomes a 10. So 10 subtract 6 is going to be 4/9. And then 4 subtract 2 is going to be 2. So my answer is 2 and 4/9. I check to see if I can simplify. 4 and 9 don't have any common denominator. I can't divide by 2, can't divide by 3, can't divide by 4, 5. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they do not have any common factors. Okay. Number 4. So when we take a look at number 4, we have 2 and 1/4 added to 8 and 2/3. So 2 and 1/4. Ooh, bad color choice on this one. Equal added to 8 and 2/3. So again, remember that I'm adding. Common denominator is going to be 12. So if you're still at the point you need to list out multiples, still list out multiples to find it. Otherwise, you should hopefully get into that point where you're starting to recognize 4 times 3 is equal to 12, which means 1 times 3 is going to be equal to 3. And then here I multiply by 4. So I end up with 3/12 added to 8/12. I don't need to regroup on this problem, again, because I'm adding and I'm not subtracting. So 3 added to 8 is going to be 11/12. 2 added to 8 is going to be 10. So my answer for problem number 4 is going to be 10 and 11/12. Problem number 8. So we can get some practice. So it says do the addition in the parentheses first, because again, when we have parentheses, that's what we do first. So I'm going to add first on problem number 8, and then I'm going to subtract. So I have 7 and 2/3, and I'm going to add that to 3 and 4/5. Common denominator is going to be 15ths. And so here I have 10/15. Here I have 12/15. So I'm going to add. 10 added to 12 is going to be 22/15. 7 added to 3 is going to be 10. So now I have 10 and 22/15, and I'm going to subtract 1 and 4/15. So notice that I didn't regroup my work yet. I didn't turn it into 11 and 7/15. And part of that was I saw that I already had 15 as a common denominator. And so I was just going to leave this and then regroup as necessary. 22 is larger than 15. And I guess I need to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and regroup this. So this becomes 11 and 7/15. And I'm going to subtract 1 and 4/15. So I went ahead and regrouped it, and part of that is this is a really large number, and I was going to have to regroup anyways. So either regroup at the beginning or regroup at the end, your choice, depending on whether or not I have to cross off and regroup. Okay, so we'll take a look at that next problem and see if I need to regroup. So 7 subtract 4 is going to be 3/15. 11 subtract 1 is going to be 10. So my answer for this problem for number 8 is going to be 10 and 3/15. All right, so let's take a look at our last problem. So again, do the addition first because it's in the parentheses. So I have 3 and 2/3, and I'm adding that to 2 and 3/5. So again, common denominator, it's going to be 15. 3/15 is going to be 9/15. 2/3 is going to be 10/15. Add those together, I get 19/15. 3 plus 2 is going to be totally just blank there, is going to be 5 and 9/15. So I'm going to turn this into, I'm going to go ahead and regroup and turn it into an improper, or turn it into a correct mixed number. And so 15 goes into 19 one time, so this becomes 6. And then I have 4/15 left over. Now I'm going to subtract. So I have 6 and 4/15. Let me do that a little bit closer. So I have 6 and 4/15, and I am subtracting. So not doing that. hang on. I read that problem wrong. I am subtracting 8 2/5, and I'm subtracting